Hey, welcome back to Wellness to Greatness. So today's conversation is one that I think a lot of us have heard about, but maybe haven't fully explored yet. Things like EMFs, radiation, and the impact of technology we use every single day, like I am right now. And if you're anything like the woman I work with, you might already feel that pull of I should probably look into this. But then life happens and the kids, the responsibilities, the mental load, and it just becomes one more thing sitting in the background. So in this episode, we're not here to add more for overwhelm. We're here to get curious, to understand what this actually means in real everyday context, especially for women who deeply care about their health and their family and don't have the capacity to overhaul everything overnight. So I'm joined today by Dr. Beverly Jensen, who has spent years studying the impact of electromagnetic radiation. She was surrounded by this since she was a little girl, and she's carried this knowledge throughout her life. And she now helps bring awareness to how it may be affecting our homes, our health, and especially our children. And in this first part of our conversation, we're really just opening the door. Like, what is this? Why are people talking about it? And does it actually matter for you and your family? So let's get right into it.
This podcast is raw, unscripted, and sometimes uncomfortable. But that's the point. We're here for open conversations and guided moments that help you realign with yourself through mind, body, and spirit, backed by science, so you can reconnect with what matters and build stronger relationships without perfection or pressure. Align, connect, empower.
Really, so for someone hearing about EMFs and radiation for the first time, what does that actually mean in the context of our everyday life? Like, what is that?
Oh, okay. We'll start with that part. What is it?
Yeah. What is this?
Yeah, what is it? Uh, there's we have in nature electromagnetic radiation at very low, very, very low levels all the time. I mean, the whole universe is electric, and we are electric beings. So this is what what I'm talking to parents about, especially moms, is the electromagnetic radiation of the man-made. So it's what we encounter and experience from cell towers and from cell phones and routers. I think it's simplest to understand this from what I learned as a kid. My dad was an engineer working for the U.S. Army Signal Corps, developing this satellite communication technology in the 1960s. All through the 60s, he was working on this. We were living in Okinawa, and the workshops of most dads are the tools or wrenches and saws and hammers, that sort of thing. The tools in my dad's workshop were a Geiger counter and an oscilloscope. He was measuring radiation. And every time I wanted to visit the workshop, which was always kind of intriguing to me, I would get this little speech. Any device that sends radio signals and receives radio signals is dangerous. It's emitting radiation, so stay back and keep it turned off when you can. I would hear this for years, and I never forgot it. And then, I mean, so if we understand, if we understand that we are electrical beings, I mean, every cell in our body is directed by electrical impulses from the heart and the brain, and these man-made frequencies are interfering or interrupting our body's natural electric system. So anyway, fast forward 30 years, and I buy the family's first cell phone in 1999. And I bought it for my 19-year-old daughter who was commuting on the Washington, D.C. Beltway to college every day. And I wanted her to have some form of communication in case of emergencies. So she was very excited about it. I said, this is really a gift for me. And then I said, now, here's how to use this. I said, don't ever put it against your head to talk. Use speakerphone. This is before we had these little wires that we could hook into them, which is even better now. But if you use the airphone wires, anyway, I said, use speakerphone. Keep conversations short. Do not carry it against your body. Keep it in a bag away from your body. And so that was the basic rules. And there was not very many cell phones in use at that time, so it was okay, worked fine. I did not remember that 20 years later when I put myself down at a desk 6 feet from a router, and I was working on a book. I was sitting there 8 to 10 hours a day, 6 days a week for 3 months. And this happened to be in Mexico. Let me tell you, the routers in Mexico are a fraction of the radiation levels as they are in the United States.
Why is
I
that?
wouldn't have had, I don't know. I mean, the amount of radiation is needed is far more than, I mean, the amount that's needed is far less than what is actually being emitted from the routers. I can talk later about one from the Netherlands that's 90% less than the routers that are typical of the US. But anyway, I wouldn't have had to sit there for 3 months and before learning that I had cooked myself. If I'd been in the US, it wouldn't have been anywhere near that length of time. Anyway, so that's when I shifted my interest in natural health and healing, which I'd had the Women's Medicine Bowl website since '03. And it was all about how to take care of yourself using natural medicines and natural remedies and natural treatments. Much of what you do too, Janelle.
Yeah.
After I became exposed to this, I was always exposed. After I became sensitive to it, I shifted the main content of the medicine bowl over to EMF because this was 2019. It's a huge impact on all other aspects of health. So if this is not under control, everything else is a miss. So that's how I got started in this. I went on to from Mexico. I went back to visit a daughter living in the Washington D.C. area, and this is how I discovered, in fact, that I had become sensitive to this radiation. In cities, the cell towers are hidden in architecture, so you don't see them. And it's April, it's warm, and I have a sleeveless dress on, walking down the street, and the skin of my arms begins to itch. And then I walk a little farther and it begins to burn. Then finally, I must have been right in front of the tower. My skin began to crawl. And these are classic symptoms of non-ionizing radiation. And that's when it became very clear to me that I had been seriously overexposed to the radiation due to that router. And I say these devices ought to have a label on them.
Yeah.
Box label that was on cigarettes. It says, put this in the least used room, and also it should be shielded. But we can talk about that later.
Well, and the thing too is usually where you put your router is to the room that you're in the most, because then you have the best Wi-Fi signal. So I find that really interesting. But can we just quickly go back to the moment where you're working on a book for about 3 months near your router in Mexico? You said that that's when you think that you started to develop more of a sensitivity to it. Luckily, it wasn't a router from the US because it's more powerful. But what were the symptoms you were feeling then? Like what started coming up for you? Was it the same when you were in Washington where your skin started to feel like tingly or itchy, or you know what I mean? And then it started to crawl. Was it similar?
The consequences of this radiation is cumulative. When I was in Mexico, I didn't have any clear understanding that I had fried myself.
Right.
I didn't, and this is usually the case because the effects are cumulative, which is also why this is such a pernicious situation because we don't until you finally hit a threshold and get smacked with it, you don't really understand that this is happening. So we can talk about why you need to reduce your exposure all the time. I mean, there's so many stories of men, particularly, who are working with multiple screens in their offices, and and this goes on for years, and then one day they're just hit like a sledgehammer, and one guy just passed out on the floor, and more common, I'm finding people who are have got their offices set up with multiple screens. The printer is working on Wi-Fi mode, and numerous things are going on that they start to withdraw, and it become they in the tech saturated market of Seattle. This is not uncommon, and they will say he's on the spectrum. That means the autism spectrum, and it's when they start not being fully engaged in where they are and who they're with right then. So it's a very pernicious situation. No, I didn't understand when I was in Mexico what I had done. There
Yeah.
would be
No,
other
that's
symptoms that would happen in Washington, D.C. because I hadn't been there for 5 years. And between 2014 and 2019, the city became saturated with EMF. In fact, there was a picture that was on the internet for a very short time that somebody had taken a photograph of the Washington Mall, and you could in a particular kind of camera, you could see the blankets, the layers of radiation on the mall. That didn't stay on the internet very long. But yeah, so the city had drastically changed in the 5 years I was there, and this has happened over especially the eastern seaboard, but it's now throughout most of the country.
yeah.
It's just a
And one
heavy
thing I want
cell
to add,
phones.
yeah, cell phones and Wi-Fi. Like
There's
you go to buildings and there's free access to Wi-Fi. You put a code, in the airports, it's everywhere. But one thing I want to hone in here is that this conversation isn't about bringing fear or, oh my gosh, this is one more thing I have to worry about. It's actually, knowledge is power. So if we
yeah,
can recognize what EMF is doing to our body and potentially the symptoms that come out from it, it might be the answers to why we're feeling certain ways and maybe why our kids are feeling certain ways. And so today, like this first part of our segment, we're just talking more about what EMF is. What is it that's not being talked about? Because this is a concern and no one's really talking about it. And then our second part of this episode, which you'll find next week, we're going to be talking more about how to modify, what changes we can make. And this is powerful. This is absolutely powerful because it is everywhere. And this is not a conversation that someone's having. So I appreciate you bringing
yeah.
this up. And I was wondering if you can maybe describe, because you talked about your experience with a kid as you got older. You gave I love the tools you already gave about your daughter and how to use a cell phone. But now we have not only phones, but we got the iPad, the laptop, these Bluetooth earpieces. We got the Wi-Fi, we got the extender for the Wi-Fi, so it goes all over the house. But one thing I notice is that I live here I live in Quebec, Canada at the moment, and it's very often we will lose power. And it's simply because we got these big, beautiful trees and they're trying to protect them. But if it gets too heavy with snow or ice, it hits a line, we lose electricity. And I have to say, there's a shift in the air. It's quiet, of
Yeah.
course, but it's like my body isn't buzzing. like I calm down. It's a very, I mean, usually you start to panic because you're like, well, now I have no access to my internet and this and that. And like, am I going to be able to cook my bread now for the kids? Like you worry about all this stuff. But overall, I actually feel so much better. I'm more at peace. And I'm like, I wish I could do this more often. And as soon as the electricity comes on, I have a sense of relief, but at the same time, I feel unease. So I'm curious, is this some like part of
This,
the EMF?
this is exactly. You have hit it on the nail, just what it is doing to our bodies. I have a friend who lives in Central California, and often the electrical wires are causing forest fires. And in fact, the cell towers are creating horrific blazes of fires, and that this is another problem. However, one summer, the power company, I don't know how she lived for 1 month without electricity, but the power company turned off the whatever they're called, transformers in certain areas of California. And she said she felt more at peace and slept more deeply than she had her whole adult life.
Mm.
And it's just exactly what you just described. There is a calmness in the air that our bodies immediately feel that when the electricity's off. And another way to experience that is leave cell phone in the car and go into the forest. The Japanese call this forest bathing, and the energy from the trees in the ground does have this effect on us. If you're not wearing a smartwatch and carrying a cell phone in your pocket, yeah. So if you leave all the devices behind and the people around you do too, then you will experience this in the forest if you go into the forest
Mm.
bathing.
I didn't even consider the smartwatch. Oh, you caught me. I wear this about 23 hours a day because I
Mm.
track my sleep, I track my steps. I mean, maybe not 23 hours. I do charge it for about an hour, but I usually take it off when I'm massaging, but sometimes I'll put it around my ankle. So
Sure.
I find that interesting. So, is there a safe amount of EMF? Because I remember there was a short period of time, a chapter in my life where I was working as a flight attendant. And I know airplanes radiate radiation as well. Um, and they limit how many flying hours you could do, not because they want to. If they can, they would make you work like a dog, but it's more because of the radiation quota. Interesting, huh? So,
Yeah.
and my mother-in-law has been a flight attendant for at least 50 years now. She's still at it, and she's 74. And she's retiring. She says she's retiring soon, but we'll see. She loves her job so much. But I'm curious if some of the symptoms she has, which she blames on old age, if it actually is relevant to the MF. So can you kind of walk us through what people typically experience for symptoms?
Um, what I described with the skin crawling is extreme. And I what is more typical is, first of all, we can just talk about sleep as the and when we talk about how to improve the situation, that's going to be one of the first thing on the top of the list is the sleep has to the bedroom has to be a sanctuary for rest and recovery, and that means everything out of there. And I have found I've gone into hotel rooms in which the radio frequency levels were zero in the other parts of the room, negligible. And you get right in front of the smart TV, which is beaming right down on the bed. And even when it's turned off, the radiation levels were high. The only way to escape that is to unplug it.
Mm.
And, uh, but anyway, uh, symptoms.
Can I ask? I want to add something to
Yeah.
that. When I was living in Australia, what they did there is they actually had a little light switch on each outlet where most electrical things were attached to. So if they were leaving the house for the day, they actually would switch off all of those, the majority ones, like the TV or not the fridge, of course, but like things that were electrical attached to it. They said it would help with energy, saving electricity, because it's still pulling electricity out. And I thought that was really interesting, but you don't see that anywhere in Canada. I have not seen that anywhere I visited in the US. So maybe that's something we should start applying, is having a little light switch.
Actually, it's available because my son-in-law did that at several points in his house for my sake. But that was useful because it helps everybody.
Yes, exactly. That's sweet of him.
Yeah, so he put that in several areas of the house. And in fact, he had, and I think he likes these gadgets, men like gadgets.
Hmm.
And there was one he put up that it was in the hallway, that if the router wasn't necessary, you flip the switch. And I thought that was amazing. I'd never seen that before.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, the router in the Netherlands goes to sleep when it's not in use, which
Mm.
is perfect, you know. But anyway, yeah, he had a little switch, it- and it could flip off electricity for, like, the Alexa. The Alexa is high radiation, and it's ELF, extremely low frequencies. So unless you've got a good meter, and that's not going to be one of those, you know, hundred bucks under Amazon. Unless you've got a good meter, it's not going to even tell you that, because it's extremely low frequencies. You know, the Alexa, and it's very high radiation levels. So back to symptoms.
Wait a minute. So
Uh,
Alexa is low radiation frequency, so it's okay to use, or are
no,
you saying it's the opposite?
it's the worst.
Mm.
ELF, extremely low frequencies.
Oh,
What all those devices are, that again, it sends radio signals and receives it. They've solved murders by listening to what Alexa recorded. There's some use for it. But uh, again, needing to sleep. And like 70 million Americans are having trouble sleeping. And it's the first symptom that something's wrong in the house. Um, Headaches. And it's a head. I had this in July of 20, and I think it was due to the Alexa, which was actually about 12, 15 feet from me. And also the neighbor's router was in the window 10 feet across the yard. So between the two of them, I I was I never had a headache in my life. And so when I got this severe headache, I this was July of 20. We're now deep into the COVID lockdown. Talked to a tele doctor. She said, "I think you should go to the ER." I said, "Okay." So I did, and I went to that was the only person in the hospital. Nobody was going to the hospital or seeing doctors in July of 20. So they immediately take me in and do an MRI and decide, after a couple of hours of an investigation, said, "Your brain's in perfect shape. You haven't even had any of those little, what are they called? Like electrical snaps that, you know, cause a little irregularity in the brain. Your brain's perfect." And this is the trick about this whole area of EMF, is it's that they haven't found, there was one study in France, but it hasn't been replicated, found indicators, physical indicators, that will tell the doctor that this is EMF sensitivity.
have you ever seen the show? I mean, I don't know if you watch TV because of the EMF radiation, but there's this show called Better Call Saul. And the character Saul is a lawyer from the original show Breaking Bad, which I know a lot of people know of. And they did a spin-off with where it's all about the lawyer. Now he has a brother, an older brother who's a lawyer, a hotshot lawyer. And they cracked it up that he had a mental breakdown. But it turns out that he was extremely sensitive to EMF. So this is the first time I heard about EMF sensitivity.
Yeah.
But the way they painted this picture of him at the beginning was like he was imagining this, that it was psychological. But then they tried to prove like that it was all in his mind by trying to trick him and put him in certain situations. But the fact of the matter, he still had the same response, even when he was being, you know, tricked, like someone hiding a phone in their back pocket or whatever. And so
Yeah.
I think it's a real thing. Um, and I know when I don't have my earphones like this and I use a Bluetooth one or have my phone up against my ear for a long period of times, I feel extremely drained and I have a headache. My ear actually hurts. I mean, my neck hurts, but that's because I'm going like this. If I don't have a Bluetooth piece, my head's off to the side. But it just brings a lot of curiosity because I remember when I got my flip phone, there was some reports about this, about not carrying the phone next to your ear when I was about 18 when I got my first phone. And but then I was like, but how do I put speakerphone on this dang thing? I didn't know how. And then later on, now I do more of that. But um, what about
Uh,
walkie talkies and things like that? That's still on a radio frequency, is it not? Because I end up getting one for my
yeah.
son. Like so when he goes visit his friends down the road and he needs to communicate with me, he's too young for a cell phone. He's 8 years old. So he has a walkie talkie just in case he needs me.
What did the instructions owner's manual of that tell you?
I never read those things. I'm like, oh, this,
It
I
was
just kind of
interesting.
figure it out.
And now, actually, there was this in the manuals of all the cell phones. There is something about this and about keeping the phone away from your head, but it's on page 19,
Oh,
and it was a study, and it was only in Canada, interestingly, Janelle, that anybody read it.
well, I guess I'm one of the few that did read it.
No, there is some warning in the cell phone manuals, but nobody reads them. And
So I
I
did ask a
know.
question earlier. I apologize. I kind of went ahead of myself. So my original question was, is there a safe amount of EMF we can have without it full blown hurting us?
Um, no, the,
Just flat out no.
because it's cumulative. That's the
Yeah.
trick,
Can you detox it?
And
Can you detox?
yes,
Okay, good.
yes,
Let's touch
but
on the
not
hope.
completely.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, but not totally. I mean, I have been working at this now for 6 years, and on a bad day, I could walk down the street and tell you what model of phone you're using.
Wow.
So, um, but that's happening less and less. The real complicated thing about this is that the radio frequencies magnify other toxins in our body. So this is why I think I mean, we're dealing with so much. I mean, all the chemicals in the food and the products that we use, and the air quality and water quality. There's just so much going on.
Mm.
However, I still say that the radio frequencies is something we can manage better, much better. And the radio frequencies they exacerbate, they enhance the toxic effects of everything else. So it's a first step that is helpful to alleviate all other health issues.
Okay.
But some more issues. Um, the sleep is one, the foremost.
You said headaches
Keeping
as well. Yeah.
yeah, headaches. Um, and then there's tinnitus, ringing in the ears,
Mm-hmm.
from too much exposure, and especially keeping the phone against your head. By now, everybody should be able to use the speakerphone if you're in a public space. There's air uh, they're wires, but they're actually air tubes.
Mm.
So that otherwise the wires is just directly transmitting the radiation up to your ear. These many of these headphones.
Oh, so the
What's up there?
headphones with the cord, you have to look for air tube. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yeah. Um, and and I have to add this right now. Bluetooth is 7 times the amount of radiation as Wi-Fi. It is horrific. I actually bought a healing device that uses energy, it uses frequencies, and there's quite a few. We can talk about that in the next episode about devices that use frequencies to heal us. And one of them I bought, it required Bluetooth to start it. And I tried, and even just turning on, so you're only going to have the Bluetooth on for a moment. The instant I put it on, I would have tingling in my hand and my forearm and in my neck and my face.
Wow.
I said to the company, I can't keep this. They gave me my money back.
Defeats the
Um,
purpose.
yeah,
Yeah.
makes you really sick to use it.
Yeah, it makes you sick,
It,
so then you somewhat feel normal or a little better after. Interesting. That's really
it
interesting.
worked.
Well, okay.
But that
So,
means do not put those hearing devices in your ear, especially if they're made of Bluetooth. And then I've had people talk about their hearing aids being run by Bluetooth.
oh, stay away from that. Yeah. So this is really interesting because I've come across several clients in my massage practice that have ringing in their ears. And we've done everything on my part. They've seen specialists to see if it's vertigo, if it's um, crystals in their ears. They've done everything. I even had a client that got surgery because they saw some sort of anomaly and it made it worse. And so it just goes to show that maybe this is one other component that we're missing that we can.
This is a frequent thing.
Yeah,
It's not uncommon.
it's super. Yeah, it's more common than we realize, and headaches too. Like I would say at least 60% of my clients that come in have some sort of tension headache, at some point, whether they come in with one or they have one when they made the appointment. It's a big thing. And um
But they
and
might
this is
the tension headaches. It might not be.
I know. I mean, I think there is a correlation because when I go work in their muscles, there's a lot of tension there. But it's kind of like the chicken. It was the chicken or the egg? What came first, right? Like, is it the muscles tensing up because of the radiation, or vice versa? So that's a really interesting perspective and something worth considering. So, what I really appreciate about this conversation with Beverly is that it opens something up without forcing you into doing anything right away. Because awareness doesn't have to mean overwhelm. We don't need to panic and start changing every single thing in our house. It could simply mean you start to notice a little more and you begin to see where small intentional shifts might fit into your life in a way that actually supports you and not adds pressure. And that's exactly where we're going in part 2, which will be next week on Wednesday. We're going to take everything we talked about today and bring it into your home, your routines, your day-to-day life, looking at what this actually looks like in practice and how it can significantly impact your health and wellness. And how can you make these simple changes without feeling like you have to do everything all at once? So if this conversation sparked even a little bit of curiosity for you, you're going to want to continue into part 2. So make sure you click the follow button so you don't miss the future episode on this. Thank you for listening, and thank you for taking the time to learn something new for you and your family. And I'll catch you next week.